Okay. Hi everyone. This is the fourth week of the MOOC, the hands-on MOOC. We are on week 4, and we have just finished the prototyping week. So I think you all had fun with this week's activities. We've seen many of your artifacts and very different and creative artifacts that you then had to test using your heuristic evaluation. So I hope you saw the usefulness and the purpose of building your heuristic evaluation protocol. And then the idea with these testings is that you get some feedback, and an easy way and cheap way to get feedback to consolidate and improve your prototype. So I think it has been an easier week than last week. It has also been enriching because you had the chance to finally see the result of all your work as designers, and also you have some feedback. We have today 2 guests. That's Michael from the Metis project and Katerina from EA. They will both briefly introduce us to their different projects, and then before that, I'm gonna just leave it to Yishai to comment on some of the contributions of this week.
Hi Maria, thank you, and of course welcome to Michael and Katerina. It's always nice to have some guests. I think this week, I mean, it maybe in some sense was easier, as you said, but in other sense it's harder because it was about really taking your ideas out and implementing them and trying them and testing them with other people, whether they are friends or family or colleagues, and really looking at the feedback that you get from them. So you know, a very reflective phase. You know, if so far we've been kind of dealing a lot with ideas and might have been a bit abstract, this was more concrete, so maybe kind of easier because closer to what you do generally, but then you need to deal with all the technical issues and you know, all the practicalities of that. And we're seeing a lot of really interesting work, and we commented on, obviously, on some of the works of both in terms of the artifact that you're sharing, and we're seeing people experimenting with a lot of different technologies, and learning from each other. And I think that's also part of the advantage of looking through the forums and looking at each other's work, because apart from, you know, the overall methodology of learning design, it's an opportunity to see how people are using different technologies in the classroom and learning from each other's experiences. We also saw some very interesting, very nice photographs that some of you took from your heuristic evaluation sessions, and also and quite a lot of comments and discussions in the forums. I'd like to you know, we had some one participant who actually asked us to review her work online, so, in the session. So maybe we'll do this now, and also I'll have to kind of work by what I have online. So I'm sharing the work that Fanny's done in ILDE. But if I get it wrong, so Fanny, please, you can either interact with the Q&A or join the session. So if we start from Fanny's dream, so Fanny's working in a secondary school, but the students aren't very motivated, and we won't obviously read all this out now, but and some of them have internet, so not every single classroom has an interactive board, right? But you want to give the students the opportunity to work on assignments at home and their computers, and then bring their work to school, and this is in the context of teaching English. So actually, student-driven activities, or actually you have students kind of create artifacts and in the process learn about English. Now, Fanny didn't share her the design scenario or evaluation protocol, but we can see she has she did try working with web collage. I think this is very useful because we can look at the activity flow of her lesson design, right? So we're talking about 18 students, age 15, so 10 boys, 8 girls, and this is in English. So they're not interested in English, but they're skillful in using ICT. So she wants to leverage their interest in ICT. And so the activity is about motorcycles, right? They're going to do a sort of a report on motorcycles and a multimedia report on motorcycles, and that they would have to write that in English, and that would build their English skills. So as you see, she's divided the class into 3 groups. Right, and they're shown a series of slides of motorcycles, and they need to identify the model, and they need to use. So and then they list the features of the models in what's in the notes place of every slide, right? So she gives them a slideshow, and they need to review it and identify the models and write notes about. That's her activity in ILDE. And then down there's also she hasn't defined the assessment tasks. I think it would be useful to identify assessment tasks and obviously also develop this activity further. But before we comment on that, let's have a look at her artifact, which is she translated this into a Prezi, right? And we can this is Fanny's Prezi. Just let's wait until it loads. Essentially, she used the Prezi for the lesson plan. Now, I'm not in this case. Okay, let's wait until it loads. So the first task here is they watch the slideshow and guess what brands and models you have, and then they duplicate the presentation and add pictures of their models. Then at home, they have to do if I understand correctly, they have to do a presentation of basic features of all cycles and what are the importance of the nodes. So they edit the presentation that Fanny gave them at home. And then there's a lesson where they present their presentations and they vote for the best model. And at homework, again, they have to prepare a presentation about the model that was chosen in class, right? And then they view each other's presentations again and vote and decide about which presentation was the best. And there's various links that she gives them to in the last lesson, where she gives links to various resources on motorcycle vocabulary, components, construction, and so on. So now there's a task to produce a matching game using tools like Kubu or Hot Potatoes. So she'll give them some tools for creating games, and finally to design their own motorcycle. Now, first of all, well, now that we've seen this, before I comment on this, I wonder if there's anyone in the Q&A session who wants to ask Fanny any questions or comment on her activity. So let's give a minute or two for people to say if they have something to comment on this. Okay, so well, if somebody has any comments, they can join in later on. Well, one thing that I would say, first of all, in terms of the prototype is, to be honest, I'm not completely sure why, Fanny, why you chose Prezi for this, because effectively what you have here is a lesson plan. And this lesson plan would be easier for you to use and would be easier for you to share with others in other media. So first of all, you can simply, because you started, using web collage, you could actually use web collage to do this sort of detailed design of the activity. And then, if your school has Moodle, then you can simply deploy it to Moodle. If not, then you can save it as a Word document or as a web page and so on. So Prezi is, I mean, it's a good tool for certain needs, but and in this case, you've used it really very much like PowerPoint, so you might as well just use PowerPoint or Word or any other tool that you're familiar with. For something as sequential as a lesson plan, I don't see a great advantage. The other thing is the activity itself seems it's quite rich, and maybe even there's a bit too much in it. So, I would think if you need really all those phases, or maybe you could, for instance, the first phase of just kind of, well, recognizing motorcycle models is, I guess, a game that you can do, a sort of a competition that you can do in class. And maybe use something like Kahoot to try to build that game and play it in class. So, kind of a very lightweight introduction to this this topic, not spend too much time on this. And then the second homework that's the first homework that's about kind of describing basic features of all motorcycles, to me, to be honest, seems, as a kid, I would find it a bit boring to just kind of describe or list the basic features. So I think I would actually go directly to the second task of choosing a motorcycle that I like and describing that motorcycle, because actually you would need to use the same vocabulary and the same kind of argumentation, but it would be in kind of trying to make an argument and trying to present something, and there's a competitive edge to it, because you want your motorcycle to be chosen against the others and so on. So that seems to be more fun and more gameful than just kind of listing the properties of motorcycle. And the other thing is that you give them the resources. Here it is. The resources for motorcycle vocabulary, you give it to them at the end, right? But actually they need that vocabulary when they're preparing their presentation. So I would say actually give them those resources on the vocabulary, give them resources on how to find information about different motorcycles and images, and then tell them to use this vocabulary to describe the motorcycles and try to convince others that their motorcycle is better than all the rest. so that's kind of my like I said, that it's hard. I might be missing some of the ideas in your design because it's hard for me to really see through um, your thoughts. So if if I missed something or you got something wrong, then please let me know, and we can continue the discussion. Like I said, you don't have a report on the heuristic evaluation of this, but in the consolidating your prototype, you have um, wrote about what you learned from the process, and the first thing you note is that you learned about different tools. So that's kind of a sort of a side effect of looking at other people's work, other people's prototypes, and so on, that you see how they use various tools, and you might get ideas from how you could use um, these tools. The next thing is you say you realized once more how important it is for students to have a clear idea of what they are asked to do, and a smooth transition from simpler activity to more complex ones. And I think that that's a very good point. That's a very good observation. I think if I look at the lesson plan that you shared as your artifact, that it's not clear, when you start the topic, what are the objectives and what's the end goal. So you need to present it in that way, and you need to present it in a very clear way. But here you write mostly about other people's work, which you found inspiring and motivating. So I don't want to comment on that. I think that's very, I recommend that people do have a look at these works that you've highlighted. Let's focus on what you decide, what you suggest based on the results and the comments you got. So yeah, so you say that it's hard to find simple sites related to your topic, and that's why you need to give them. Now, I think that's true. You need to do some research for this task, and maybe if you want them to report on certain motorcycles, then you need to find. I'm sure that the companies who manufacture these motorcycles have information sheets on them. I'm sure that there are online motorcycle forums and magazines that they can use. So you need to create some resources for them. That's quite true. And maybe think about tools like Pinterest or Scoopit that allow you to create resources and then offer that that curation to your students as a starting point. There was this is an activity that we didn't get to about sketching the motorcycle, but again, I'm not sure if you really need this activity. I think if not that it's not an interesting activity, but I'm not sure how it maps to your aims. So so that's why I think you need to you need to go back to defining the aims and objectives of this activity, and then really storyboarding it in terms of saying, okay, these are the step by, these are the different phases in the activity. This is what I'm trying to achieve in each phase. This is how I'll evaluate that. So I think really you have a good start, but I would say overall it's probably time to sort of go back and iterate through the whole design cycle and refine it and get get something that's sort of more cohesive and focused. I don't know if perhaps other people want to comment on this.
Yes, thanks, Ishai. I was so at the same time you were showing this, we had some questions about the tools for prototyping. So Anastasia was saying if she needs to use Prezi or Poltown for the prototypes, and we had also a question on the Moodle, on the chat for the Moodle about prototyping tools as well. So while you were showing Fanny's work, you showed also different tools that they have used for prototyping, and I would add any kind of tool is okay, as long as it really helps you really explain the learning activity. So you were saying maybe Prezi is not the best tool for this learning activity, so they don't need to stick to any one. All of them are fine as long as it really it's the best means to convey this learning activity. And then, so I would also use this. Go ahead.
Yes, I think, it's very good that they're experimenting with various tools, but no, we're not pointing them to any specific tool. It has to be something that really works for them and for the activity that they're designing. We do recommend, and that's the advanced activities that we added. We recommend the learning design authoring tools that are included in the ILD. So that's why also Michael's here to tell us a bit about OpenGLM, and we saw that quite a few have tried their hand in using web collage. So the other tools are really designed for, well, prototyping and then also fully developing a detailed learning design, which you can then also deploy to Moodle if you have Moodle in your school and you can use it. But the other tools, if somebody's used to working with PowerPoint or Word, they can use that. I mean, the idea about prototyping was not about, what tool you use, but about getting something that you can actually share with colleagues or friends and get them to try out.
Maybe now we can switch to Michael, and he can tell us about different prototyping tools and the advanced activity that they introduce as part of the METIS project, and they are developing the ILDE environment. So, Michael, do you want to introduce yourself a little bit more?
Sure. Thank you for the handover. My name is Michael Deantl. I'm active here at RWTH Aachen University in Germany. And our group here is involved in the METIS project, also in the development of the ILDE, or the ILD, the Integrated Learning Design Environment that you have been using. And in particular, we are responsible for OpenGLM. And I'm very happy that we had at least one user who was able to produce something with OpenGLM and post it on ILDE. Yeah, I was very happy. It made my day. But before that, I will talk a bit about this advanced activity in case not all of you are aware of it. Maybe I'll share my browser window because my face is probably not that interesting. 1 second. I think it's that. Yeah, I hope you can see it. So the optional activity, activity 18, was about prototyping using authoring tools that are made in a way that allows you to put the stuff that you make there, the designs that you create there, to push them in your virtual learning environments. So basically, as you've been talking about the choice of tools, you can use any kind of tool, but those two that have been that we ask you to use there, so web collage and OpenGLM, they are actually capable of producing a package that can be read and exported, read by a computer and exported to Moodle, for example, which could ease with the setup of the course in your virtual learning environment. And this is called authoring tools in ILDE. And maybe I will briefly walk you through some of the key features of those tools so that all of you have the joy and pleasure of seeing them in action once. So you've probably seen this. If you go to this new learning design solution, you can use one of these authoring tools that I integrated in ILDE. And for example, with web collage, that many of you used actually, you are kind of put into a metaphor of describing your designs that gives you some options but also some restrictions. Yeah. So for example, you need to describe, for example, the prerequisites. You need to provide learning outcomes one by one. You need to link those learning outcomes to learning activities. But the most important thing in web collage is that it allows you to, let's say, build on best practice by using learning design patterns or collaborative learning design patterns, so that you just have to provide the little details that are specific to your context. Yeah. For example, I can add here one of those design patterns. I can choose some options that apply to my course that I'm designing, and then I will see which patterns fit this problem context. Yeah. And if I select one of those, for example, think, pair, share here, then I get a pre-arranged set of activities that are put in some kind of sequence where I only need to provide some of the details. Yeah. So, for example, I have to provide a description for the activity, link it to some of the learning objectives that have been described before, and also to the tools that will be used during this activity when it's running in the runtime. Okay. Also, I mean, you can provide lots of other things, like you have to provide all resources. And once you're done with that, and there are no further actions to consider, here we have a lot of trouble because we need to provide a lot of descriptions and everything. If you've done all that, then you can actually take this package that you have created there and export it to Moodle from within ILDE. But before that, I will also show you something in OpenGLM. So maybe in the Q&A, if there is any specific question about web collage, don't hesitate to ask. I will continue with OpenGLM, but observe the Q&A a little bit. Okay, so I will have to switch the screen now. OpenGLM. So one difference here is that it's a desktop application, so you download it and install it on your machine, which you don't have to do in with web collage. But here, so OpenGLM is connected to ILDE, so you can fetch learning designs that are stored on ILDE into your local installation, and you can also export the ones that you create to ILDE. So for example, you can either create a new one from scratch, or you can start with an existing one, for example. So I could just import something from ILDE. I don't provide a search text now. I just click search, and then I will find all learning designs that are compatible with OpenGLM and that are available on ILDE, so where I have access rights. I see there's one called X and there is one by Stamatia. And now I can just take this one, rename it like I'm building on Stavatia's design. I'm storing it locally, and then I can, start exploring her the activities that she has put into sequence there. I can change it, adapt it to my needs. For example, I can remove an activity, say, okay, I don't need this, so I rewire this here. I can also, change all descriptions. So what we have here is, in OpenGLM, you specify a sequence of activities, and you describe the activities in this activity description. And similar to web collage, you can add tools, materials, add-ons like chat rooms, discussion forums, conferencing services, and stuff like that. And yeah, you can also provide general descriptions. Here we see the code that embeds the image on ILDE that Samantha has uploaded there. Can make another version. We see that Samantha has not provided any learning objectives, so I could do that here, like express. This is what I saw, or what I think I saw before. And the other thing you probably recall from web collage, also prerequisites. So that's part of the standard that those two tools implement. And when I'm done, I'm just storing it. So then it's stored locally on my machine, but I can also share it with all of you by exporting it again to the integrated learning design environment. And now I cannot overwrite Stamazia's design because she hasn't given me editing rights. But if she had given me editing rights, I would have the option here to override the existing one. Right now, I just create it as a new one, and hopefully it's exported, and it should be available to, or not to all of you on ILDE because I haven't shared it yet. So what I would have to do then, 1 second, going back to the browser window, and then you are released. So if I go to my LDS, you see it has been uploaded. I'm sharing it with all of you, and now you should also be able to see it. Okay, so this is how it works, and we also see that this learning design in the duplication tree, we see that it was, forked from Stamazia's learning design, so it also carries forth this kind of information. So this is the idea of doing the authoring with integration in ILDE, and the great thing about that is that any design that was created with web collage or with OpenGLM or with Catmos can now be pushed to a VLE instance. And I will show you this very briefly because probably will not even work. But I would go to New LDS, Implement, select the design for implementation. And here I have the ones that, again, I have access to. And I could just implement this design I have just created in OpenGLM, providing some title, a very useful title, of course, some VLE space. And then, of course, we have to do some. Okay, so it contains an unprocessable entity. So remember that ILDE is under development, a research prototype. So it's possible that you see some error messages. In this case, probably because we have some errors in our design. But what would happen if there wasn't an error in the design? I would have to map the users that are registered on the VLE to the roles that we have defined in OpenGLM or in web collage. And I would have to assign the concrete tools that are offered in this virtual learning environment and map them to the services, add-ons, and tools that you have added to your web collage or OpenGLM designs. And then I would just push a button and a Moodle instance would be set up and ready for use based on your prototypes. So that's a basic idea. And I mean, for some of you, if you haven't done so yet, I would urge you to check or try whether you can implement your web collage designs or your OpenGLM designs. It's sure worth a try. Okay, so that's it for now from my side. I'm happy to take any questions or comments by my fellow presenters or the audience.
So there are some questions in the Q&A about OpenGL. I'm just quickly looking. So it's asking if they need to download. So OpenGL is a tool that they need to install on their computer if they want to use it. Right? It's not part. I mean, web collage is integrated in ILDE, and they can use it online, and OpenGLM they need to install.
Yeah, it was the wrong decision at the beginning. Yeah, we have a desktop application that you have to download from the source code hosting platform.
Well, that has its own advantages as well. So I wouldn't say a wrong decision. It's just that, and I see, there's, so some people already say they prefer OpenGLM. Some people prefer web collage, and the point is we are not making any judgment here, right? I mean, it's really, both tools I think are very powerful, and they have, they would appeal to slightly different users or might be suitable for slightly different situations. So it's not that one is better than the other, and we recommend one over the other, right?
Yeah. I think, I mean, from the prototyping tools perspective, one of the issues with all of those detailed authoring tools is that it kind of prescribes you how you have to think about your ideas and about your designs. You have to, most of these tools exhibit a particular kind of terminology, vocabulary, authoring metaphors and stuff like that that many people are not familiar with or many people don't want to adopt. So that's one of the advantages, of course, if you just fire up a PowerPoint presentation or a Prezi or something, yeah. But I mean, it's like everything. If you at some point, if you are on the transition to deploying your design in a virtual learning environment or in a real classroom, you have to think about those details. Either you do it explicitly, like in these authoring tools, or implicitly before or during the delivery.
Yes. Yeah, I think, it does seem to be like an overhead, but actually, if we look at, for instance, the example that we saw earlier from Fanny, it was hard to understand why she put things in a certain sequence, and it was hard to understand how those activities map to her objectives. And that's something that if you use a tool like OpenGLM, it would guide you in making those decisions explicit, and so it will hopefully also support you in making better decisions. Well, like we said, it's an option for people to try these tools or use other tools that they're more comfortable with. The only thing is that we want them to have some representation of their design or part of their design in a format that they can communicate to others and get their feedback. And then, of course, if they do have a Moodle environment in school, then it would be very interesting for them to actually deploy the activity to Moodle and think about actually using that in order to facilitate the activity with students. But that's obviously that not every teacher has that possibility. I think so. There's some questions if you can show it again. I think that people can replay the video later. We're already running quite long with this session, and we don't want to go too far and too long. I know you need to leave soon, Michael. So so people can rerun the video, and if you have any questions, and we set up special forum for these advanced activities, and you can ask the questions and get answers in those forums.
So don't worry, the follow-up meeting was postponed to 4, so I have still a quarter of an hour.
Okay, but we said anyway. We also want to introduce Katerina and just say a few words on next week's activities. So if people do come up with specific questions in the Q&A, we're happy that you're still here to answer them. But if it's kind of going through the whole presentation again, I think it's better if they just view the video again and ask you any questions they have on the forum.
Yeah, just a small remark. I'm also aware that I mean we provided some user manuals for our tools, but of course I know that reading all those pages is probably not the favorite pastime of all people. So I'm just saying this because we're planning to also make demo videos that show how these tools, or at least OpenGLM, can be put to work for your ideas. So I will, if it's ready by next week, I will share it via the MOOC platform with you.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. So thanks, Michael, for joining us today and explaining Web Collage and OpenGLM. It was very useful, and I think many of the participants were interested in different prototyping tools, and also from the comments on the Q&A, a lot of them want to know how to implement this in their learning environment. So this is an option we could re-explain next week. I think, Isha, it would be interesting to tell them how to take their own learning designs into the Moodle. This is something we talk, and maybe for the end of the course it's interesting. As you know, we have always aimed at teachers having, by the end of this course, ready to implement learning activity using an ICT tool. So we hope to give you as many options as possible for this to be possible. So we will show you how to implement these learning designs and deploy them into the Moodle. And also we have today with us Katerina from EA, and she will tell us a little bit about ODS, that's an open discovery space, which is a community for teachers where you can share your own learning activities. So that's another another step further into the MOOC if you want to keep working on it, and she will tell us a little bit how to introduce this, and this week she will do it briefly, and next week we will have a session in Greek where they will go more in depth into this environment as a way to keep working on this. So Katerina, do you want to tell us a little bit about what ODS is?
Okay, hello. I hope you can hear me.
Yes.
Thanks for having me here and for the introduction. Well, my name is Katarina Riviu. I work in Ελληνογερμανική Αγωγή in the Research and Development Department. And since in the specific pilot there has been a great number of Greek teachers, we have thought that it would be nice if we set up a Greek community on the ODS portal and have a week where participants could also try yet another tool to upload their activities there and share it with other teachers. So Open Discovery Space is also providing other functionalities except from the community mechanism. That means participants and members of communities have the ability to discuss about issues, create smaller groups based on their specific interests. They can create polls, they can rate a comment, and they can have their own blog where they can initiate and post things around their activities. So perhaps these facilities will be also useful during the implementation phase. ODS is also a harvester of content and provides the ability to people to search for educational resources based on some search criteria. And what we will try to do here is ask participants to upload their activities as educational scenarios. So through the communities, registered member of the communities can upload either educational content or lesson plans or complete learning scenarios. Lesson plans could have the form of learning activities taking place during the 45 minutes, let's say, sessions. And learning scenarios are more complete activities that could also combine activities in and out classrooms, visits to museums or other rooms of spaces of interest. And the important thing what we will try to do is have a vivid and active community that will share resources as well as their experiences after the implementation of these activities. And ODS is also can be a room for schools that don't have some kind of official portal for sharing activities, and it can be a place where teachers can collaborate, exchange practices, adjust them to their own context by sharing and translating. And since we do have a number of Greek participants, we have agreed that next week we will have a 30 minutes session in Greek, where I could demonstrate the tool more explicitly, and I could answer all possible questions. This initiation will also take place in the Moodle forum, where we will provide the link of the Greek community, and we will ask people to register and be members of the community, so that will help the procedure, the process of the Friday session where the tool will be demonstrated. So thanks again for being here and for having this short introduction.
Thank you, Katerina, for sharing with us what ODS is and for leading this Greek community and taking it to the next step. I think many of the Greek participants really have enjoyed this MOOC, and we have also enjoyed very much their contributions. So it has been really a very enriching experience for all of us. So as I said, our goal is that you all have a ICT-based learning activity ready to implement into your classrooms next year. So next week we're going to move on to the next and final stage. The idea is that on Monday you concentrate on publishing your learning activity. So it's a little bit about show and tell. Please think about a way of publishing your learning activity for others that can understand it. We have seen with Fanny's artifact and some others artifacts that maybe there's still some things that need to be clarified. So please use this time to make explicit all the things that someone needs to know to implement the learning activity. And then you will have to publish it together with the heuristic evaluation protocol, so that other peers can provide feedback and run the heuristic evaluation on their own and provide you feedback. So you will be asked to evaluate 2 other learning activities, and also you will need to be working on your design studio report. The idea of that is to make us a shorter version of the design studio report to share, and also to take with you with all the things you've learned. And then we will be sharing also more reflections and thoughts of this course, and have a final conversation session next week. So I'm just going to say to Anastasia, she mentioned that she won't be there next week. We will miss you too. But there's no problem for obtaining the badge or finishing the MOOC. So if you cannot make it, it's okay. I also want to remind what just Katerina said. So we will have a special goodbye conversion session, and then we will move to the ODS presentation that will be in Greek. And I think that's all for this week. So I just want to thank again Michael and Katerina for being with us today, and enjoy the weekend, and we'll see each other next week. So if there's no more questions, oh yes, I wanted also to thank Eleni for the feedback on Fanny's artifact. If you want to provide her feedback on the Moodle, please feel free to do so. And we will send you the ODS link as well. Yep, that's all for today. Have a great weekend. Bye. Bye, Michael. Bye, Katerina.